My name is Claire Dawson. I'm 34 years old, and the company I rebuilt from the ground up was handed to my sister after she got bored in Santa Monica. They said it was about vision. They said she brought energy. They never mentioned the systems I created, the clients I secured, or the sleepless years I spent keeping Dawson Strategies alive while they called it a family business. If you've ever poured your legacy into something, only to watch someone else paint over your name and call it theirs, stick around, because this isn't a story about revenge. This is about leverage, and how silence, used well, can rebuild a throne. If this kind of story resonates with you, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that matter. Let's begin. My father built Dawson Strategies from the ground up. I rebuilt it into a powerhouse. Then he gave it all to my sister. They always liked Sunday dinners formal. Linen napkins, flickering candles, a decanter of red breathing at the center of the table like it was something holy. I showed up in a navy dress shirt, still carrying the scent of my last meeting. Madison breezed in 15 minutes late, her curls still damp, makeup barely there. Mom gave her a fond look, the kind that smoothed over every absence with affection. Dad didn't even glance at the clock. The roast sat untouched for a while. Madison had just returned from Santa Monica. Another creative sabbatical, she called it, after walking away from a high-profile PR offer. She was tired of selling other people's stories and wanted to write her own now, preferably from the executive office of our father's company. I watched her wave her fork around as she told a meandering story about a meditation retreat. She barely mentioned the job she had just declined, but I caught the signal. She had no backup plan. That was never a problem for Madison. Someone would always hand her one. Dinner turned into a script I hadn't seen before. Dad raised his glass for a toast. "I've been thinking a lot about legacy," he began, looking straight at me, "and the future of Dawson Strategies." I set my wine down before I dropped it. His voice was calm, the way CEOs sound just before announcing layoffs. "It's time I step back from daily operations. Madison will be assuming full ownership." I didn't hear the rest. I watched Madison. Her eyes didn't sparkle. They flinched for half a second. But she nodded. Accepted. No protest. No, Claire worked harder, or Claire rebuilt this place. Just silence. Then a smile. The air seemed to leave the room. I kept my face blank. Mom glanced at me like she expected a speech. Dad waited for something. Tears, gratitude, a fight. I gave them none of it. I wiped my hands slowly on the cloth napkin, then reached for my wine glass. The rim was still warm. I picked it up and then set it down again. I pressed my fingers to the base and wiped, just once, as if I could erase the years I'd spent believing that chair at the boardroom table belonged to me. No one said a word when I stood up. Later that night, I sat at my desk under the cool hum of a desk lamp. The house was quiet. I opened my files, client dossiers, playbooks, long-term strategy decks, my proprietary audit system. I compressed everything onto a USB, labeling it Final Transfer. Then I opened a blank document and began typing. It wasn't rage that guided me. It was precision. Every word in that letter felt like a scalpel, cutting away the last attachments I had to the version of the future they once dangled before me. I didn't ask for a fight. I asked for fairness. And what they gave me was proof I didn't matter. I closed the laptop and set the USB next to the resignation letter. The air smelled of oak and ink and finality. My phone buzzed the next morning. "Call me," Dad had texted. I stared at the screen, then typed, slowly, deliberately. "You've made your decision. Now I'm making mine." You don't walk away from a company you helped build. You carry it with you, in every silence, every missed call. The espresso machine hissed behind me, but I barely noticed. My fingers hovered over the keyboard in a coffee shop tucked between two bookstores on Michigan Avenue. The world buzzed with conversation, spoons tapping porcelain, the clink of ice in summer drinks. My screen was silent. The inbox, quiet, but not empty. Unread. One from Thomas Lynn. Subject: You're not going to like this. I clicked. Madison just pulled the plug on your 3-tier audit model. Replaced it with brand-forward client experience tiers. Whatever that means. Jen from Insights left this morning. I'm hanging on, but I'm tired. We all are. I stared at the screen. The strategy system I'd refined over a decade. Discarded. Our internal mentorship program gone. My curated account templates replaced with design-heavy decks that looked like Pinterest mood boards. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My silence was the only boundary I had left. The next message came 3 days later. Subject: Whitmore asking questions. Claire, I don't know if he's bluffing, but Grant just asked for a repitch. He said, I signed with Claire, not with a color palette. I reread that line 4 times. Grant Whitmore, our biggest account, $8 million annual. CEO of a tech conglomerate who spoke in clipped sentences and carried zero tolerance for fluff. I remembered our handshake in Palo Alto, the look he gave me when I walked him through our modular advisory model. I don't work with firms, he'd said then. I work with people. That should have been my warning. The next morning, my phone lit up again. A forwarded image. Thomas, a single slide from Madison's new deck. Vague words about vision and energy alignment. No figures, no ROI, no benchmarks, just gradients and buzzwords. I closed the photo and walked outside. Chicago in early June hums like a wire. I turned down LaSalle, stopping cold when I saw it. Dawson Strategies' new billboard. The serif logo was gone, replaced by bright brushstroke letters, DSCO, DSCO. They didn't even keep the name. For a second, the street tilted. I stared up, feeling the loss swell in my throat. It wasn't nostalgia. It was theft. Erasure. You build something from nothing, and then someone paints over your name with a marketing campaign. Back at my apartment, I boiled water but never made tea. I watched the kettle steam, then walked away. 2 more days passed. I kept my phone silent, ignored the news. Then another message. Subject: It's done. Termination notice came through. Whitmore is pulling out. Says DSCO's current leadership doesn't reflect his values. Legal's panicking. I dropped my head into my hands. Not from guilt, but recognition. I had warned them. They didn't listen. I pulled up a document titled Legacy Salvage Plan, version 1. It wasn't a revenge folder. Not yet. Just notes, contacts, models. I wasn't done thinking. But I had started watching. My phone lit up once more. Dad's calling again. When a man who erased you calls for help, the first answer is silence. The second is leverage. Westbrook Coffee was never Claire's favorite. Too polished. Too many executives in Lululemon pretending they weren't here to negotiate. But it was neutral ground, and today, neutrality had its uses. She chose a corner table by the window and sat down, placing a single stack of papers on the oak surface. No laptop, no briefcase. Just ink, outlines, and an old brass pen. She stirred her tea slowly as the second hand on her watch ticked past 1:05. Then the door chimed. Richard arrived looking smaller than before. Less Titan, more man whose name had been removed from something expensive. His coat hung looser on his frame. Elaine trailed behind him in beige linen, eyes scanning the space with her usual careful diplomacy. Claire didn't stand. Thanks for coming, Richard said, voice low. He slid into the chair opposite her. Elaine followed silently, folding her hands over her purse. Claire nodded once, then glanced at her watch. 15 minutes, she said flatly. That's what I'm offering. Richard didn't argue. They've gutted the systems, he began, burned goodwill, alienated half the senior clients. Grant Whitmore terminated. I know, Claire said. I read the termination letter. Twice. Elaine interjected gently. Your father didn't mean to hurt you. Claire's jaw flexed. Intent doesn't erase consequence, Mom. Madison arrived late, as usual, hairstyle deliberately undone, fingers scrolling through her phone until she reached the table. So, she said, tossing her sunglasses on the surface. What's the plan? Claire reboots the dinosaur while I polish the brand? Claire didn't respond to the tone. Instead, she placed 4 sheets in front of her, one at a time. Then looked at Richard. These are my terms. He blinked. You haven't heard our offer yet. I'm not here to hear offers, she said. I'm offering you a lifeline, and it has 4 conditions. She tapped the first page. 51% equity. I want controlling stake. Richard frowned but said nothing. Second, operational control. I select my team. No oversight committee. No vetoes. The third page. Madison moves to public relations. External only. No access to financials, legal, or operations. Madison sat forward. That's ridiculous. You're punishing me for... Claire cut in, voice flat. You removed the spine of a company for aesthetics. This is correction, not punishment. The final page. Fourth, establish an independent advisory board. External executives, quarterly reviews, binding counsel. Richard exhaled. That's steep. It's structure, Claire said. It's what I built, what she dismantled, and what you let happen. Madison scoffed. This is extortion. Claire turned to her fully, voice still even. I'm not asking to sit at the table. I'm rebuilding the table. A long silence followed. Elaine shifted but didn't speak. Madison opened her mouth again, but Richard's eyes cut across the table and stilled her. Something about that glance held weight. Something that said, don't make this worse. Finally, he nodded. Have your lawyer draft it. Claire didn't smile. She gathered the pages and placed them back into her folder. They all stood at once. No hugs, no handshakes. Outside, Claire stepped into the warmth of late June. Her phone buzzed in her pocket as she crossed the street. A message lit the screen. Heard you're back. Can we talk this week? Grant, you can't walk into the same company twice. The second time, you walk in knowing what not to forgive. The glass doors of Dawson Strategies hissed open as Claire stepped into the lobby. Her heels clicked once on the polished floor, then silence followed, as if the building itself was holding its breath. A few receptionists looked up, startled. One of them, Tracy if she remembered right, straightened in her seat and without a word, stood. Claire nodded in acknowledgement and moved toward the elevator. The interior was largely the same. Modern wood tones, clean lines, ambient jazz that looped too predictably. But something about the air was different now. Not stale, not cold. More like something bracing for correction. The town hall was scheduled for 8:30. At 8:29, Claire entered the conference hall and walked directly to the podium. No fanfare, no dramatic lighting. A few dozen faces stared up at her. Some familiar, some newer. Some avoided eye contact altogether. Claire set a printed folder on the podium and began. No slides today, she said. Just clarity. She spoke for exactly 10 minutes, announced Thomas Lynn's formal appointment as COO, detailed an internal restructuring plan, efficiency-focused, accountability-driven. There was no mention of Madison's name, but her absence echoed in every sentence. The new slogan came last. Claire pulled the old banner from behind the table, faded but legible. Precision, then vision. A slogan she had drafted 5 years ago. It once hung behind every strategic planning meeting. It was replaced 6 months ago with Momentum Means Magic. That banner now sat, folded in a waste bin outside HR. Applause came. Not raucous, but steady. Claire gave a small nod and left the podium. She met Thomas outside the conference room. He handed her a folder. Leaked contracts, he said. 3 of them. All handled through a back channel tied to Madison's college roommate. Claire flipped through the documents without stopping her stride. Have legal draft termination language, she said. Include indemnity clauses. By midday, she had already walked the executive floor twice. The mural outside her office, the one she had commissioned, had been flipped upside down during Madison's brief reign. An abstract piece of layered lines meant to suggest growth. She stood before it in silence, eyes scanning the edges, then turned, walked in, and closed the door behind her. Her old office smelled like lavender oil and printer ink. She inhaled once and set her phone down. The next meeting was with PR. The director, Dana, walked in warily. Claire got straight to it. "I want back every media account we lost." Dana nodded. "We can start with Tier 1. "All of it," Claire cut in. "And if someone pushes back, tell them I said to review their own performance." Dana paused, then offered a small, relieved smile. "Welcome back." By 4:15 p.m., Claire had signed her first executive action. Termination notices for the 3 contract partners flagged earlier. Her second action reopened the Whitmore negotiation file. She didn't ask for Madison's input. Madison, for her part, hadn't shown up on the executive floor all day. At 5:02, Claire stood by her office window, watching the reflection of the city pull itself into golden dusk. Her phone lit up. "Grant, if you're willing to talk face-to-face, I'm in town this weekend. There's something poetic about reclaiming a deal you once secured. This time, as the only name on the contract." The elevator opened directly into the 42nd floor of the Whitmore building. Polished marble floors, glass walls, and silence. Claire stepped out, the echo of her heels folding into the crisp air conditioning. She wore a deep navy suit. Tailored, simple, and deliberate. The same hue as the first brochure she had pitched to Grant Whitmore nearly a decade ago. Sarah, Grant's longtime assistant, greeted her without fanfare. "They're ready for you." Claire followed her past sleek workstations and minimalist light fixtures into a glass-walled conference room that hung above the Chicago skyline. Grant Whitmore stood at the far end of the table, flipping through a slim folder. He didn't look up as she entered. "Claire," he said. "On time, as expected." "I didn't come to waste yours." He gestured toward the chair opposite him. Claire sat, placing a clean binder between them. No frills, no buzzwords embossed on the cover. Just the Dawson Strategies emblem and the subtitle, 3-Year Optimization Strategy, Confidential Draft. Sarah took her place beside Grant. A quiet man in a gray suit. Legal counsel, judging by the subtle lapel pin, sat 2 seats down, expression unreadable. Claire opened the binder. The previous version was overbuilt. Too much messaging, not enough math. This streamlines every lever that matters. She flipped to the first section. Your Q4 cycle length is currently 11.2 weeks. With a phased automation rollout, we dropped that to 8.9 by end of year 2. Another page. Internal data modeling has redundant layers. Our system removes 2 of them and increases ROI by 12% over 18 months. Sarah's pen scribbled at a steady rhythm. Grant leaned back. "And who guarantees execution?" Claire didn't blink. "The person who did it the first time," she said, "but never signed the credit line." Grant's eyes met hers fully for the first time since she'd walked in. A pause. Then he laughed. It wasn't theatrical. More like recognition, sharp and clean. He turned to Sarah. "I think we have our real partner now." She nodded once, and the man in gray retrieved the draft contract from his case. Claire didn't smile. She just reached for the pen. 5 minutes later, the ink dried. The $8 million contract was back in place, this time with one name at the bottom. As she stood to leave, Grant spoke again. "Claire," he said, "next time, put your name on it first." She gave a small nod. "I intend to." The city lights were just beginning to glow as she stepped into the elevator again. She pulled out her phone, half expecting only silence. Instead, a single message blinked on screen. "Madison, can we talk? Just the 2 of us?" Some conversations aren't for reconciliation. They're for closure. The wind off Lake Michigan curled gently through the trees, carrying the scent of sun-warmed grass and distant salt. Claire sat on a worn wooden bench overlooking the water, posture still, arms resting on the slats. Her blazer was folded neatly beside her, replaced by a simple blouse and dark jeans. She didn't look up when Madison arrived. Madison's steps were hesitant on the gravel path. Her sunglasses were too large for her face, like she was trying to disappear behind them. She stood awkwardly for a moment before taking the other end of the bench. They watched the lake in silence, waves breaking with quiet rhythm. "I didn't come to ask for anything," Madison finally said. Her voice carried a roughness, not quite guilt, not quite regret. I don't know what management is, Claire. I thought I could figure it out. I thought it was about energy, vision, but it's structure. It's people. And I don't think I ever understood that." Claire turned her head slightly, just enough to acknowledge her. She didn't respond. Madison kept going, more to fill the silence than to persuade. "I didn't want it to be about beating you. I wanted it to be about finally being seen. That's all. I just wanted to be recognized. Like you." Claire exhaled. Not a sigh, but something quieter, an emptying. "And you were," she said. "You were recognized. Just not for what you thought." Madison looked down. Her hands twisted in her lap, nervous, uncertain. "I'm not here to prove it anymore," Claire continued. "I'm not here to win some invisible race. You can keep the PR role, if that gives you a place." Madison blinked, caught off guard. "You mean it?" Claire nodded once. "As long as it doesn't affect the balance sheet." Another silence settled, this one less brittle. A seagull landed nearby. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughed. Life moved on, indifferent to legacy or betrayal. "I saw Mom," Madison said, "before I came here." Claire didn't ask what she said. She already knew. Elaine had always wanted peace, even when peace came too late. Madison stood to leave. "If you ever want to talk—" "I don't," Claire said gently, not unkindly. "But thank you." After Madison walked away, Claire remained seated for 10 more minutes, for the last 10 years. That evening, she returned to the office one final time. The halls were quiet, her office untouched since the last strategy meeting. She placed an envelope on her desk, no name, no heading. Inside, her resignation. There was nothing dramatic in the gesture, just an ending. Clean, chosen. A month later, as the days stretched into early fall, a quiet ripple passed through LinkedIn. Claire Dawson, founder, Dawson Whitmore Group. He Lake was quiet, but the silence held no bitterness, only resolution. Claire didn't reclaim her place to be seen. She reclaimed it to remind them who built it. Justice doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it walks in wearing the same suit it was once denied. Because when the wrong person gets the crown, the real ruler simply rebuilds the throne.